Okay, so today we are working on the Subaru again, and over here is just came in today is a random assortment of lines, hardware, I don't know, bolts, nuts, that kind of thing, that I got from the dealer. So this should be, I'd say, about 90% of what I need to finish putting the rest of the engine together. With the intake manifold over there also. Excuse me. And here is the actual list of part numbers that I have that are enclosed. So I don't really have a stopping point today, but my goal for today is just to get as much of this on that as possible. So first thing I'm going to do is install this. This is a guide for the timing belt, and here's the part number. And that's just going to go over the crank right here. And the reason why I got this is because the automatic ed cars, which this engine is out of, don't have that supposedly because automatic cars never spin the engine backwards. Now, in a manual car, for example, if you're parked on a hill, you let off the brake, the car might roll slightly backwards in gear, and I guess the thing is there is a risk of the timing belt skipping time and maybe jumping a tooth if the engine were to do that. So the manual cars have a guide over the crank. They also have guides over here on the at the cam gears as well, but you know that I think requires a different part number cover or something. So for now, for me anyway, I'm just going to put this on because it's easy and it was cheap and it doesn't hurt to do. So this is just going to go on not finger tight, just snug with a quarter inch ratchet, and that will do. So I'm going to start the timing belt guide by hand, and actually there is a spec for how much clearance you're allowed to have with this, and it's, I believe, 0.5 mil to 1 millimeter. So after I kind of get this started, I'm going to take my set of feeler gauges and make sure it is having the right clearance. So first, bolt this on loosely. And what I'm going to do next is grab my feeler gauges. I don't think this goes to 1 millimeter, so I might have to stack two together. So this is a 305 and this is a 432, which is about 7/10 of a millimeter. So I'm going to stack these two and make sure it is able to clear all around that. So yeah, so this is already too tight, so I'm going to loosen this back up. So maybe, where is it having the most trouble clearing? So maybe I'm going to hold my gauges in here, snug this bolt back up, and check my clearance around. So now this is too tight. Basically, you're just going to have to do your best in, you know, trial and erroring it, and it'll take a few tries before you can get it right. But just enjoy the process, I guess. So this is good. So the 7/10 shim is clearing all the way now, so I'm just going to tighten this the rest of the way. This is a 8 mil head, so 10 mil head, so no need to over tighten. And yeah, this I think is gonna be good. The torque spec, I guess I should tell you what it is at least. Timing belt guide is 7 foot-pounds, so I don't have a torque wrench that'll go that low, so again, just feel it out with your ratchet, make it tight, but you know, I guess bottom it out and then maybe give it like a tick more. So like that, and that'll be fine. Now what's next? And now that the guide is on, I think I am done over here at the front of the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the timing belt covers. And I'm gonna lose it all. Okay, and just okay. And now the covers are on. Sorry if it may have skipped out a little bit. I think the camera only lets me record up to 10 minutes and I guess I took too long. What I'm going to do next is install the crank pulley back on the car. And for that, so here's the crank bolt. So this is a 22 millimeter. I'm actually going to apply a little bit of Loctite here before I reinstall it, and the torque spec for that is going to be 130 foot-pounds. And the crank is just keyed on, so and here's the Loctite. So spread it around, and that should be enough. And the crank is just keyed on, so just line up this key here to this, and it should just slide right on. Like that. And another bolt. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to tighten this. I think probably the better way to do it is there is a tool that holds the crank through these 4 holes here. So it's just a big breaker bar basically, and you hold that in place while you take this and the torque wrench and you torque it to spec. I don't have that tool. I'm also by myself, so what I'm actually gonna do is this. So these are what's called kind of torque tubes, impact sticks, I don't know. But basically what these are is they are calibrated, I guess, torque tubes that tighten a bolt to whatever is specified here. For example, this one says 120 foot-pounds, and I think I'm just going to be using that, and I think that'll be fine, especially now that I applied the Loctite. So how this works is you put this on an impact gun and you just, you know, go to town on it, and basically what you'll see happen is it's going to turn, and once it hits this torque spec, then this bar is going to start deflecting like this, and this is gonna stop turning. Right there, you see that? How it stopped turning? And just to show you one more time. See? So this impact gun is rated to go to, I think, about 300 foot-pounds of torque, and you can see at that point, you know, it's not going to turn this anymore. So that is good, and let's move on to the next step, which is PCV. So yeah, I'll do this tube next. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to replace is the PCV valve assembly here. So I'm replacing it not because the valve is bad, but because the lines going off from the valve were all cracked and you know, need replacing. Subaru actually sells you the entire assembly with a new valve and all new lines and clamps with this part number. So that just makes it really easy for you to just unbolt that one or unclamp that one and put a new one in. So for that, I'm going to be using this tool. Okay. And when you replace these, you don't have to reuse these clamps. You can just put regular old hose clamps on it and it'll be fine also. But yeah, you can see in this one, this is starting to crack. Also, I can't even bend this. That's just how old it is. So yeah, the new one, it's easy to buy the assembly. So, you know, I recommend just doing that. Now, where's the new one? And you can see how this is much more flexible. It went on like this. Oh, shit, where's... Oh. Okay. So now what I have here is this line, and that is going to connect the passenger side, passenger side PCV to the head. So it'll connect from here to here. And this, I don't think originally comes with any clamps, just because it's not really under a lot of pressure. So I'm just going to slip this on here and slip it on here. Now I'm going to install this. So this is another part of the PCV system, and that's going to connect this to the block here. And now we're gonna install the passenger side PCV. Now, I thought I ordered it, but it's not in the box, so I'm going to actually reuse the one from the old engine. It's pretty hard, but it doesn't look like there's any cracks in it, so I'm just going to roll the dice with it and replace it if I have to, but you know, hopefully it'll hold. So, and that one's just going to go on like this. And it does look like the PCV lines are all clamps, so I'm going to actually add clamps to the other side as well, which I didn't do, but I'll do it later. And now I'm going to install the oil drain into the turbocharger. So, as I mentioned before, the B&R turbo comes with a gasket and an oil drain. So, you know, actually, I don't know which way it is supposed to go. Let me go mock it up. Alright, so the oil drain, when you put it on, goes, can you see the bend? This way. So the bend goes towards the compressor side. So I'm going to place the gasket, then the drain, and the bolts. That doesn't really fit well. I have another one, so let me try if the OEM one's any better. And the OEM part number is this for the oil drain. That works. Oh, sorry. But yeah, you can see the oil drain is now installed. And then I'm going to install the turbo into the car. Okay. So now what you're gonna do is install the up pipe brace, which goes on one bolt on the up, one stud on the up pipe, and two into the engine. One nut on the up pipe, and two bolts going into the engine. So, and these are the bolts that I'm using. I don't know if that's the right one, but it threads in and doesn't seem to interfere with anything, so I'm just gonna go with that. And torque these to 26 foot-pounds if you can. I know some of them are gonna be tough to reach, but if you can't, no worries. I don't think this is gonna be too critical. But I'll check at least these two. Okay, so it was pretty close. So I think they're good. And then now install the turbochargers. Here they are. Torque to 12 foot-pounds. Alright, another problem. The B&R coolant hardline doesn't clear the up pipe race, so I'm going to take it off and then grind it down and fit it back on. So here's where we're at with the turbo so far. So I got the coolant lines installed. I think this is gonna work for the final time. What was going on was that the supplied B&R pipe was interfering with the turbo bracket, and the OEM line for the return, I guess, I don't know which way the coolant flows, but this line I had to use B&R supplied brass line, and this line I used the OEM line. So, and the OEM line just comes in two pieces, but there's just a metal tab at the end. You could just flex it until it breaks off, and I just test fitted this into the up pipe and everything clears. And so I'm going to torque these back to spec, which is 12 foot-pounds. Again, don't forget the copper washers. And I'm going to install the turbo, oil line, and I'm going to install the water line, and then I think I'm going to call it a night at that. So. Torque these again, 26 foot-pounds. I guess what I could have done also with the, if I wanted to stick with the BMR's line, is I could have used an angle grinder and I guess clearance the bracket, but just reusing the OEM line seemed like an easier thing to do. So, okay. And what I'm doing now is I'm installing the other up pipe bracket, and mostly possible. Okay, this is gonna be the coolant line for the turbo. The part number is this, and that's just going to connect this back into the engine. So I assume this is the feed. My finger, yeah. This is the feed, and this is the return back to the engine. And they've also included the clamps in here, which is nice. So, good for that. Good for them. So So I think with these, you're just going to have to compress them while inserting force, just because you don't really have a lot of room to, well, I guess you could do this, but same story. No, you can't. You don't have enough room. So you just have to compress this whilst pushing in the line at the same time, basically. But yeah, pretty easy to do. You have a ton of room to do this, so not a big deal either way. Oh, and before I forget, I'm going to attach the oil feed. Yeah.